At age 78, Sally Field talks about the 7 stars she most wanted to date. The Flying Nun won 2 Academy Awards and won her the hearts of many Americans. Even though she is 78 years old, Sally Field is still one of Hollywood's most loved icons. She has worked with some of the most desirable leading guys in movie history over the course of more than 60 years. But now, in a rare moment of honesty, Sally Field has told her fans something they've always wanted to know: the 7 hot Hollywood stars she most wished she could date. These artists aren't just any. For a whole generation, those guys were what it meant to be a man. Their posters were on bedroom walls, and their smoldering gazes made people weak in the knees. Sally's list is an interesting look into the heart of a woman who has always been more than just the girl next door. It includes passionate real-life relationships and secret dreams that never came true. What makes a performer so appealing? Maybe it's those sharp eyes that look right through the camera, that voice that makes you think of something scary. But maybe it's that star quality that you can't describe and can't make. We are going to talk about the 7 men who made Sally Field's heart beat the fastest during her famous work today. These stories about one of America's sweethearts and the men she loved will change the way you think about them. They range from hot chemistry on screen that turned into real life to admiring looks from across crowded award shows. So sit back and enjoy as we list the 7 leading guys in Hollywood who captured the heart of one of our most famous stars. First, let's talk about the man who did win Sally's heart, if only for a short time. Trust me, number 1 on this list will make you say, "I can't believe they never got together." 7. Burt Reynolds, the love story in real life that burned to bright. You couldn't have missed them if you were living in the late 1970s. In Hollywood, Sally Field and Burt Reynolds were known as the golden couple because they had everything together. Reynolds, who is known for his rugged machismo, cocky laugh, and mustache, went great with Field's girl-next-door charm and obvious talent. Many people thought their relationship was simple, but it was much more complicated and heartbreaking than that. They met on the set of Smokey and the Bandit in 1977 and were together ever since. Reynolds was already a huge star at the movies. He was the perfect American alpha male, and his name on the sign was enough to fill theaters. At the same time, Field was trying to get rid of the innocent image she had gained from movies like Gidget and The Flying Nun. They felt a strong attraction to each other right away. There was something about him. In a conversation with Diane Sawyer, Sally once said, "The camera and I both loved him so much. There was something about them that you couldn't deny." This spark that made a room brighter as soon as he walked in. They were together all the time for almost 5 years. They were in for movies together that showed how well they got along. Smokey and the Bandit, Smokey and the Bandit 2, The End, and Hooper are the movies. Their relationship in real life made their acting better, making viewers feel like they were seeing something real and special. But trouble was brewing below the surface. At the height of his fame, Reynolds had a hard time with it because of the stress of being a star, taking prescription drugs after hurting her jaw. Field was becoming more serious, a dramatic actor, but his jealousy and controlling behavior were making it hard for her to breathe. Right when Sally's career was taking off, things went off the rails. She got her first Oscar in 1979 for her role as Norma Ray, which made her one of the best actresses in Hollywood. Reynolds allegedly didn't feel proud of her accomplishment. Instead, she felt threatened by it. As her star rose, their relationship fell apart. Reynolds called Field the love of my life in his 2015 autobiography, even though they had broken up years before. He said he felt bad about losing her. Sally's response was more measured, acknowledging their passionate connection while recognizing its ultimate toxicity. "We had a real relationship, not a Hollywood romance," she wrote in her own book in parts. "It was complicated and had its problems, but it was real." What's so interesting about this relationship isn't just that it happened. It's also that both stars talked about it with such sadness decades later. Reynolds kept calling Field the one who got away until his death in 2018. And Field, while cleared about their problems, has never denied the powerful pull he had over her. Their story isn't just a Hollywood romance. It's a cautionary tale about how passion alone isn't enough to sustain love. But it also speaks to the lasting impact certain people can have on our lives, even long after the relationship has ended. For Sally Field, Burt Reynolds represented a pivotal chapter in her personal story, a love that burned too bright to last, but too significant to ever fully forget. But Reynolds wasn't the only leading man to catch Sally's eye. Let's move on to number 6 on her list, a blue-eyed legend whose appeal transcended generations. 6. Paul Newman, the unattainable blue-eyed dream. Some crushes remain forever in the realm of fantasy, distant stars we can admire but never reach. For Sally Field, Paul Newman represented that kind of idealized attraction. With his famously piercing blue eyes, chiseled features, and effortless cool, Newman wasn't just a movie star. He was a cultural icon whose appeal spanned decades. Paul Newman was the kind of actor who made everyone around him better. Sally once remarked during a Hollywood tribute, "And those eyes, well, they weren't just blue, they were truthful. When he looked at you, even on screen, you felt like he was really seeing you." Though they never starred in a film together, Sally and Paul crossed paths numerous times throughout their careers at awards ceremonies, charity events, and industry gatherings. The mutual respect between them was evident, with Newman reportedly praising Field's performances in Norma Rae and Places in the Heart. What made Newman particularly appealing wasn't just his physical attributes, though those certainly didn't hurt, but the depth and complexity he brought to his roles. From Cool Hand Luke to The Verdict, Newman portrayed men with moral ambiguity and inner conflict, qualities that resonated with Field's own approach to acting. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Newman's off-screen persona matched his on-screen appeal. His 50-year marriage to Joanne Woodward became Hollywood's gold standard for commitment, proving that lasting love was possible even amid the temptations of fame. His dedication to philanthropy, particularly through his Newman's Own Food Company that donated all profits to charity, showcased a social conscience that aligned with Field's own activism. "I think what made Paul so special wasn't just how he looked," Sally explained during a Turner Classic Movies interview. "It was who he was as a person, his integrity, his commitment to his craft, and his causes. That's what made him truly sexy." While Newman was firmly committed to Woodward throughout his life, it didn't stop generations of actresses, Sally included, from admiring him from afar. He represented something increasingly rare in Hollywood: the complete package of talent, looks, integrity, and longevity. When Newman passed away in 2008, Field was among the many industry colleagues who paid tribute to his legacy. "There was no one quite like him," she said. "He set the standard not just for how to be a movie star, but how to be a good human being. That's a much harder role to play." Paul Newman may have been the unattainable dream, the perfect movie star crush who remains safely in the realm of fantasy. But our next contender on Sally's list represents something different: the rugged action hero whose gruff charm made him Hollywood's most bankable star throughout the 1980s. 5. Harrison Ford, the reluctant sex symbol. Harrison Ford and Sally Field never shared the screen, but that didn't stop her from joining the millions of women worldwide who fell under the spell of Han Solo and Indiana Jones. Ford represented a new kind of leading man in Hollywood, rugged but vulnerable, heroic yet flawed, and Sally wasn't immune to his considerable charms. "Harrison Ford is ridiculously hot," Sally once candidly admitted during a rapid-fire interview segment on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen. The audience erupted in agreement, and Sally's knowing smile said it all. Some attractions are simply universal. What made Ford particularly appealing to someone like Field was likely his approach to fame. Like Sally, Harrison was known for valuing the craft over the celebrity, the work over the spotlight. Both actors came up through the industry at roughly the same time, with Ford famously working as a carpenter between acting jobs before Star Wars catapulted him to global fame in 1977, while Field, as she won her first Oscar for Norma Rae, Harrison Ford was making waves as Indiana Jones. They represented two different sides of Hollywood in the early 1980s. She was the serious dramatic actress, and he was the blockbuster action hero. But their work was real and not fake. which made them stand out from their peers. I think what's attractive about Harrison is just the obvious, Sally said in a retrospective about 1980s movies. He never seemed to buy into his own hype. Someone who is the biggest movie star in the world, but still looks like they'd rather be in their workplace making furniture is very attractive. Even though they had worked with some of the same studios and directors for a long time, these two actors were never meant to work together. It's hard to imagine what kind of chemistry they would have had on screen, with Ford's tough minimalism and Field's honest emotions playing off against each other. Instead, they remain professional admirers, with Sally joining Ford's long list of co-stars and colleagues who have praised his work ethic and understated charm. In Hollywood's ecosystem, they occupied different roles, niches, but shared a common approach to their craft, prioritizing authenticity over glamour, substance over style. For fans of both actors, the notion of a Ford-Field romance, even a fictional one, carries a certain appeal. To unpretentious stars who never quite fit the traditional Hollywood mold finding connection with each other, it remains one of cinema's intriguing what-ifs, a pairing that exists only in the realm of possibility. But while Harrison Ford embodied the action hero archetype that dominated 1980s cinema, our next contender on Sally's list represented a different kind of masculine appeal. The small screen star whose mustache launched 1,000 fantasies. 4. Tom Selleck, the mustache that launched 1,000 dreams. In the early 1980s, as Sally Field was establishing herself as one of Hollywood's most respected dramatic actresses, another star was rising, albeit on the smaller screen. Tom Selleck's portrayal of private investigator Thomas Magnum in Magnum Pi made him television's most desirable man and a cultural phenomenon whose appeal transcended demographics. That appeal certainly wasn't lost on Sally, with his 6'4" frame, signature mustache, with his sparkling eyes and playful masculinity. Selleck was a nice change from the seriousness of many movie stars. Sally never worked directly with Selleck, but she has talked about him in interviews when talking about the actors of her time who caught people's attention. Tom Selleck had this wonderful quality. She once said during a career retrospective, he could be very good-looking and sexy, but there was also something approachable about him. He seemed like someone you could actually meet and have a conversation with, not some untouchable idol. This friendliness was part of Selleck's appeal. Despite his classic movie star good looks, he gave off an air of sincerity that made people feel like they knew him. Like Field, Selleck never seemed to take himself too seriously, making fun of his sex symbol status while continuing to improve his acting skills. In many ways, their careers happened at the same time. In 1985, Field won her second Oscar for Places in the Heart. At the same time, Selleck was at the height of his fame and starting to move into film roles in movies like Three Men and a Baby. They had to deal with the complicated waters of fame while trying to keep their normal lives together. There's something about that era, Sally said about the 1980s in Hollywood. We all knew each other, at least peripherally, through events and award shows. When someone like Tom walked into a room, yes, everyone did pay attention. It's not possible, right? When he started talking, though, you could tell he was just as normal and down to earth as anyone else in the business. What may have made Selleck so appealing to Field was his reputation as one of Hollywood's real nice guys. He was known for being professional, polite, and respectful of collaborators at all levels. This matched Field's own approach to her work, talented professionals who never forgot how important it was to treat others with respect. They only met a few times at industry events, but the mutual respect was clear. Selleck, like many of his peers, has spoken highly of Field's talent and contributions to film, and Sally, while being typical Sally, has named him as one of the actors whose work she admired. During that formative decade of her career, a generation of viewers, Selleck represented an ideal, handsome, but not threatening, masculine, but not macho, successful, but still relatable. It's no wonder that Sally Field, with her keen eye for authentic talent, would have appreciated those qualities in an era when style often trumped substance. But while Selleck represented television's answer to the classic movie star, our next contender on Sally's list was known for something very different, a reputation as Hollywood's most notorious ladies' man. 3. Warren Beatty, the charismatic heartbreaker. Every list of Hollywood heartthrobs must include Warren Beatty, the legendary actor, director, and producer whose romantic conquest became almost as famous as his films for a young actress coming up in the late 1960s and 1970s. Beatty represented the epitome of Hollywood charisma, and Sally Field was no exception to his widespread appeal. Warren had this presence, Sally once recalled during a Hollywood Reporter roundtable. When he walked into a room, the energy changed. Everyone felt it, men and women alike. He had this intense focus when he spoke to you that made you feel like you were the only person who mattered. Though never romantically linked in reality, the idea of Field and Beatty as a potential couple is far-fetched. Both came to prominence during the same era, with Beatty already established as a major star when Field was transitioning from television to film. Their paths would have crossed at numerous industry events, and given Beatty's reputation for pursuing talented actresses, it's entirely plausible that he would have found Sally's combination of talent and girl-next-door charm appealing. What made Beatty particularly fascinating wasn't just his legendary good looks or his impressive body of work in films like Bonnie and Clyde, Shampoo, and Heaven Can Wait. It was his intelligence and his understanding of Hollywood as both an art form and a business. Beatty wasn't just a pretty face. He was a filmmaker who helped reshape American cinema in the 1970s, a quality that would have resonated with Field's own artistic ambitions. There's something very attractive about someone who understands all aspects of the business, Sally explained when discussing actors who became successful directors. Warren knew how to tell stories from every angle. As an actor, a writer, a director, a producer, that kind of comprehensive vision is rare and frankly sexy. Beatty's reputation as a womanizer, he was linked to everyone from Natalie Wood to Madonna before finally settling down with Annette Bening in 1992, added an element of danger to his appeal. The challenge of being the woman who finally captured the heart of Hollywood's most notorious bachelor would have been intriguing to many actresses of the era. For Sally, whose public image was significantly more wholesome, the contrast between her persona and Beatty's might have created an interesting tension. It's the classic attraction of opposites, her authenticity and emotional openness playing against his sophistication and carefully cultivated mystique. While we can only speculate about any actual interest between them, the fantasy pairing of Field and Beatty represents an intriguing what-if scenario in Hollywood history. Would her grounded nature have anchored his restless spirit? Would his intensity have drawn out even more of her considerable talent? These questions remain in the realm of cinematic fantasy, which is perhaps where they belong. But while Warren Beatty represented Hollywood's sophisticated ladies' man, our next